Okay, Jeff here is going to describe to me how to set up the air gun spray system for the DataDots. Carry on, Jeff.
Basically you just have a gun. A new disposable nozzle is used for each particular pin number or vehicle, and the pot of dots, which has a individual pin number which has to be registered for each vehicle or components or accessories. The pod needs shaking for about 30 seconds to make sure all the dots are up in suspension. Remove the cap. Remove the foil seal. And fit the spray nozzle to the pod. Just a simple bayonet fitting then, goes onto the nozzle, goes onto the gun, and you're ready to spray. Spraying needs to be done at about 25 psi, so set the regulator to 25 psi. Connect the air and away you go.
I just sprayed some inside the actual internals of the smart bar. DataDot have actually got probes that will probe inside the bar to actually find any dots that are fully hidden. And this is just the brackets at the back of the bar. Again, very easily visible to the police when they try and find them. Yeah. And now we've got the actual winch of the vehicle. When you're doing the winch, make sure you do the gearbox and the motor housing, and it doesn't do any damage to put a little bit inside the webbing of the actual the winch itself, somewhere where it's nice and hidden. Then we come underneath the car. If you're doing the actual vehicle itself, you'll be looking for somewhere on the engine block that's visible but always clean and dry, more or less, yeah? This vehicle's got some airbags on it and some quite expensive components to convert the suspension. So we're just giving that all a spray as well. With the engine, it's always recommended to try and find somewhere again that's hidden. So on the engine block, if you can see an empty stud where there should be a bolt, probably a good place to spray in there. Again, a place where dots won't go missing, but can be easily found when required. And always try and get at least a couple of places on the engine if you can. Your differential, if you wish. Some differentials are quite expensive. Maybe not the Land Rover ones, but the petrol ones apparently. But anyway. Your gearbox, bell housing, your transfer case. Again, if you're doing the vehicle, you want to do places on the chassis. For the moment, we're only going to do 2 or 3 places, but ideally, on most vehicles, you'll be doing more than this. You'd always want to look for somewhere that's hidden behind the webbing on a chassis, rather than just across the chassis itself. You want to go somewhere where it's going to be hidden and less likely to be taken off or washed off. And as you can see here, I'm just, again, picking wet areas that are hidden out the way. And what we're doing here is just an area of the vehicle that we know won't be getting hit by stones and dirt when we're generally 4-wheel driving down the tracks. Somewhere up the back of the chassis, totally protected for the elements. And just spraying the airbag mounts. On some vehicles you'll have some quite expensive rims, and you'd want to spray in behind the rims. And again, one or 2 places on the rim, just to make sure. Again, your differential, pick somewhere up nice and high, and on most differentials you'll have somewhere, again, a pocket where you can actually put them where they won't get dislodged. With your fuel tanks, any larger fuel tanks, again, try and go to the rear of the tank rather than the front where it gets stone damaged. And 2 or 3 places you can pick somewhere up in there, back of the tank. And with the tow bar, just give it a blast, a couple of spots. And this vehicle's got a twin wheel carrier on it. Probably better that you do it while it's up in the hoist. And again, you've got some nice access holes in some of your twin wheel carriers. So spray inside the carrier rather than just on the face of it. Again, up the back somewhere. Another one at the top of the fuel tank. Again, the top of the airbag system. And one more just inside the chassis leg there. Again, another place somewhere not commonly no one would take a light out to steal a bar.
The other method for spraying as opposed to the airline is a propellant pack. There's an aerosol can of propellant which fits into this hood, just clips in underneath like that. The pod of adhesive and dots is slid into the front. There's a piercing tool that comes with the kit that goes down through the holes in the cap like that. Just wiggle it around to make sure you've pierced the foil. Remove that. There's a grey nozzle and tube with a red air tube connected. That is pushed down through the larger hole. The red tube then goes into the aerosol actuator, like so, and you're ready for spraying.
When you get to the actual accessories on the vehicle, it's probably better to swap to the brush system or a swab, and it's just a case of dipping it in. As you dip it, you'll automatically pick up quite a few of the DataDots, and just brush it on, and then just find somewhere, again, not so visible, up inside your brackets at the back of the light. Again, just in here's a nice groove inside the light here, you can put it in there, up there. Here's another option to put it on the bull bar bracket. When you come to stuff like the light force lights and the actual smart bar itself, the plastic doesn't really lend itself well to the dots sticking, and especially on the outside body, but if you get underneath places where it's less likely to be attacked by weather and things like that, the dots will stick easier, but again, preferably as smooth a surface as possible. So just like that. And then if you can, just maneuver the light a bit, get something up, again, up in the back of the light somewhere. And really, you'd only want 1 or 2 spots on a driving light. There's not really much need for any more. And if you're going to do antennas and things like that, pick the metal rather than the plastic, but again, up the back of the plastic where it's not going to get smashed by weather all the time. And down on the bracket. An opportunity here to get behind the bar, put one on the top of the winch, on your control box if you have to, and any other spots there. Now, one thing to be wary of, especially with things like snorkels and that, putting a dot there or there might seem hidden to you, but these will actually glow in the sunlight. Can be quite visible to the person that owns the car, never mind anything else. So again, always make sure that if you can, keep things hidden. So put it in there, that will end up on the snorkel itself, and it won't get rubbed off by the weather because it's actually protected in there. And it does no harm to put a wee bit inside. And if you're inside the engine bay, you might put somewhere in the engine bay, or anywhere else you think. We'll just basically keep it out of vision of the person that drives the vehicle, and then there'll be no complaints. Okay. Things like awnings and that, again, if you can, keep it hidden, so go up inside the awning, pick a number of spots. And while we're here, we get an opportunity to go behind the roof rack. Again, somewhere nice and hidden. We can also get up and do the underside of the rooftop tent, do the wood and do the alloy rail. We might do some more at the other side when we get round there. Again, just places just nice and hidden away, up behind brackets and things like that. On your wheel carriers, good idea to do it back, just up underneath there. So the arms are just as expensive as the bars sometimes. With your drawer systems, probably the best spot is somewhere up. Again, a couple of spots, but keep it on the drawer itself. Again, just any electronic components, try and keep it here. I'm putting it inside the cooling fins at the back of the bracket. Now, with your fridge, get it up underneath the bottom of the fridge, and but if your customer's willing to pay a wee bit extra, I would suggest you actually take the cover off and put some dots on the actual motor inside the fridge itself. And then especially if you've got a serial plate on the back of the fridge, as the National Lunas and that do, spread something over the actual serial plate itself. Just underneath your radio, again. If you can, this is a remote head, if you can get to the main body of the radio, just make sure you do that. In this case, mine is inside the cubby box, so I'm just going to do it there. And with this kind of radio here, it's probably better to try and get the fascia off the car and do it behind the fascia. In this circumstance, it's mine, who cares? But if it was a customer's vehicle, you would pull the fascia off and put the data dots on the actual body of the radio, not on the face of it.